Learning how to create a pivot table in Excel is much easier than you believe. Pivot table is one of Microsoft Excel's most powerful and intimidating functions. Pivot tables can help you summarize and make sense of large data sets. However, they also have a reputation for being complicated. I'm going to walk you through the process of creating a pivot table and show you how simple it is. First, let's take a step back and make sure you understand exactly what a pivot table is and why you might need to use one. Pivot tables simply extract meaning from that seamless, endless jumble of numbers on your screen. More specifically, it lets you group your data in different ways so you can draw meaningful conclusions more easily. The pivot part of a pivot table stems from the fact that you can rotate or pivot the data in the table to view it from different perspectives. Now that you have an overview of pivot tables, let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually create one. The first step is to enter your data into a table. Before you create a pivot table in Excel, you should at least have a basic Excel table where all your data is housed, like this one I have. Here, I have a list of products with the year they were produced, their types and producers, and the volume produced. With a pivot table, I can find out several pieces of information. I can find out what volume of each product was produced each year. I can also find out what volume each producer produced each year. At this point, you will want to have a goal for your pivot table. What kind of information are you trying to learn by manipulating this data? This will help you design your pivot table in the next few steps. Now the next step is insert your pivot table. Inserting your pivot table is actually the easiest part. You have to highlight your data, go to Insert tab, and click on Pivot Table. A dialog box will come up, confirming the selected data set and giving you options to import data from an external source. Ignore this for now. It will also ask you where you want to place your pivot table. I recommend using a new worksheet. You typically won't have to edit the options unless you want to change your selected table and change the location of your pivot table. Once you've double-checked everything, click OK. You will then have an empty result like this. This is where it gets a little confusing and where most people used to stop as beginners because they are so thrown off. We will be editing the pivot table fields next so that a table is rendered. The next step is editing the pivot table. You now have the skeleton of your pivot table and it's time to flesh it out. We will use this pane on our right to edit the pivot table fields. This can be a little bit confusing to look at if this is your first time. In this pane, you can take any of your existing table fields and put them into one of these four fields. In the filter field, this turns your chosen field into a filter at the top, by which you can segment your data. For instance, here I will choose producer to filter my pivot table by. I will drag and drop it inside here. It works just like a normal filter or data splicer. In the column field, this turns your chosen field into vertical columns for your pivot table. In my instance, I will choose the year to be the columns for my pivot table. Keep in mind that the fields value themselves are turned into columns and not the original field title. Here, my columns are 2021, 2022, and 2023. Looks good, right? In the row field, this turns your chosen field into horizontal rows in your pivot table. For instance, here is what it looks like when I set the product group field to be the rows. Now the value field. This turns your chosen field into the values that populate the table, giving you data to summarize or analyze. Values can be averaged, summed, or counted. In this example, if I put volume into value field, the value will be a sum of the field because volume contains numeric values. If it was a text field, it will be the count of the fields. So this tells me the volume of each product group produced each year. and the grand total of each product and the grand total for each year. Now the final step is to analyze our pivot table. Once you have your pivot table, it's time to answer the questions you posed for yourself at the beginning. What information were you trying to learn by manipulating the data? With this, I wanted to know how many products were produced each year, total of each product produced across all years, and the total produced in each year. And I can filter with the producers. I can look at what volume each producer produced. Now the final tip. What happens when you make a change in the original data? It is this simple. You come back to the pivot table, right-click on it, and click on refresh. You are good to go. That is it for this video. I hope this was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.